Hello, I'm James, and welcome to Cosmic Corner. Today we're going to be talking about the most heated topic in the space community. You might as well bring up politics when you bring up this. Is Pluto a planet? First, before we even discuss anything further on Pluto, let's talk about the man who discovered Pluto, and that was Clyde Tombaugh. Now, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Not 100% sure. Yeah, I think Tombaugh. That's a pronunciation right in front of my face. Anyways, let's talk about him just for a second. He was born in February 4th, 1906. So that was over a century ago. And he passed away, actually really not so long ago. He lived a pretty long life. He lived 91 good years. So January 17th, 1997. So he hasn't been gone that long. He was alive and I was alive. So that's pretty crazy stuff. And he was an American astronomer. He discovered Pluto in 1930, as previously said. And actually, Pluto is one of the first objects that would later be identified as the Kuiper belt. Q-U-I-P-E-R belt. The Kuiper belt. I think that's how I pronounce that. That's a lot of. There's a vowel. There's two vowels next to each other, and that doesn't sit right with my way I talk. So I think it's the Kuiper belt. I believe it's how it's the. Okay, so there's a belt. No, only in the middle, as known as the asteroid belt, but there's a belt on the very outside of our solar system too, and it's called the Kuiper belt. Now, I knew about this, but I just can't pronounce it. But what I didn't know, I just learned, is that Pluto was one of the first objects to be identified as the Kuiper belt. Anyways, that being said, let's talk about why Pluto is not a planet. Now, Pluto is considered a dwarf planet, and it's a dwarf because it's really no bigger than most moons. Actually, our moon and Pluto are roughly, now I say roughly the same size, but they're about the same size. And the definition of a planet in our solar system is that it has to have three things. Two of them I agree with, one of them I really don't agree with, and we're going to be talking about that when I get to it. But the first thing is first, it has to orbit the sun. It can't be orbiting anything else but the sun. Now, in a way, in their very own little way, moons do orbit the sun because it's orbiting around the planet that orbits around the sun. Therefore, it still orbits around the sun, but that's not its primary orbit. Its primary orbit is around the moon. Not around the moon, around its planet. So moons would be excluded in this because it's not revolving around the sun only. It's also revolving around another object as its primary object, and almost its secondary object is the sun. So we're going to go with its primary object it revolves around is the sun. Now, the second thing is that it has to have a mass. It has to have a mass strong enough to shape it. So it has to be round. It's kind of, let's put this in kindergarten terms. The planet has to be round for it to be called a planet. It has to have shape. It has to look like a planet. So we're going to put this in kindergarten terms there, but in actual terms, it has to have a mass strong enough to shape the planet. Now, the third thing, and it's the most, I don't think it's right. I think it should be pulled from planet, what they could be called a planet, is it has to clear its neighborhood. It means it can't have anything in its orbit. So smaller objects around its orbit is a no-go. It can't have anything. It can't be like in an asteroid belt. It can't be in the Kuiper belt. I'll just put two and two things together. If you caught it, good for you. I want you to type in "I got it" in the comments right now. Boom. Anyways, Pluto was, as I said before, one of the first things to be considered the Kuiper belt. The Kuiper belt is almost like the asteroid belt. It's a bunch of objects, and it hasn't cleared its neighborhood. So Pluto, because it's in the Kuiper belt, isn't a planet. Pluto is not alone. There are 4 other planets that aren't being called planets due to this same rule. And these planets are, now I can't pronounce names very well, so we're going to have to give me some room, and don't hate on me too much, but these names are Ceres, Eris, Makemake, and Huamea. Those are the other 4 planets that are dwarf planets that are being robbed of the title planet because they have not cleared the neighborhood. They have the other 2, but they have not cleared the neighborhood. Let's go ahead and start from where I took notes down, and that is Ceres. Now, Ceres is the largest object in the asteroid belt. And there we go. Pluto is in the Kuiper belt. Ceres is in the asteroid belt. So they're in belts of objects, so they're not planets. So Ceres actually was just considered an asteroid at one point. It was just a large asteroid. Then they looked into it and like, this looks like this has, it's rounded and it has an atmosphere. It's a planet. I believe it's a planet that's caught in the asteroid belt. So that's just what I believe, but it's considered a dwarf planet or a minor planet. So it is the largest of the minor planets. So it's the largest dwarf planet. And let's go ahead and check this list off. Does it revolve around the sun? Yes. Is it have a mass enough to round it off, make it shape it? Yes. It's a planet just caught in the asteroid belt. So it's not a planet. Doesn't make any sense to me, but it makes sense to NASA. The next thing is Eris, or Eris, however you want to pronounce it. Tomato, tomato, potato, whatever. It's the second largest dwarf planet, and actually the ninth most massive body directly orbiting the sun. So out of everything orbiting the sun, it's the ninth most massive directly orbiting it. So it's a heavy object. And it also has a moon. This thing has a moon. That's crazy. So if it's not only massive enough to shape it, it's massive enough to have another object revolve around it. That sounds like a planet to me, but it has not cleared its neighborhood, so it's not considered a planet. Now let's talk about Makemake. Makemake is located where Pluto is, and it's in the same neighborhood as Pluto. It's in the Kuiper Belt, but it's 2/3 the size of Pluto, and it has a satellite. Now that's all I got. That's all the information I could find. But it said a satellite, so does that mean it has a moon? Or is there other versions of satellites that I haven't done much research on? But the only satellites I know about in space, besides for man-made ones, such as the Space Telescope, Hubble, and everything else in our space station is a satellite, and everything else that involves our GPS and everything else is satellites. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about objects. So it has a moon, is what I'm getting from the information I have found on Makemake. So Makemake, massive enough to round off, and it revolves around the sun. Sounds like a planet to me. Now, this other planet is a special case, and we're going to talk about why. Huamia is a Plutoid. Now, is Makemake a Plutoid too? I haven't looked. I didn't get much more information into Makemake. But Plutoids, in case you don't know, are dwarf planets after Neptune. So, after Neptune, if it's a dwarf planet, it's considered a Plutoid. And they believe there are a lot of Plutoids. But I haven't done much research on it. I did the research on these 5 planets, and that's it. So in a future video, if you want to know more on the topic, just let me know, and I will do it. But anyways, Huamia isn't shaped right. It has a funny shape. It's kind of shaped like I have a picture of it up. But you see how it kind of has almost like a pill shape? It doesn't look like a planet to me. But there's a special reason why it's shaped like that. Now, it's revolving around its axis at such a high rate that it might have shaped like that because of such high speeds. Now, how fast are we talking? We're talking about one turn. It revolves around its axis one time every 4 hours. Every 4 hours, it's been a day on Huamia. On Huamia, it's spinning pretty quick. So in case you didn't want to do the math, I've already done it. And 1 day on Earth is 6 days on Huamia. Now that's a fast spin. But is it shaped like that because of how fast it's spinning, or is it shaped like that because it doesn't have a mass? It's not massive enough to shape it. Now I'm not sure if Huamia has any moons. I have to do some research. And actually, doing a voiceover, so I haven't seen any pictures yet. I just did some reading, and I wrote down some notes. So if it has a moon, it will show up on the screen. If not, it doesn't. So as previously stated, and if you haven't caught the idea yet, the only thing keeping these dwarf planets from being called planets is the fact that they're in, quote unquote, in a tight spot. They haven't cleared the neighborhood, as NASA likes to put it, on quote unquote cleared its neighborhood, such as there's other objects and its orbital path, or they're located in belts. So they're not alone. They orbit with other objects, so that doesn't make them a planet. That doesn't really make any sense to me. So there's a meeting going on. I think it's already happened or it's about to happen, and they're going to be looking into the subject of is Pluto a planet. So they're going to have to rewrite the laws that make planets planets. And I've looked into it, and I already disagree with it, mainly because yes, it'll make Pluto a planet. It'll make all the other planets we talk about planets, but it's also going to make 110 objects or more or less in our space planets. That includes Pluto, Pluto's moon, all the dwarf planets, and all the moons. Our moon, Saturn's moon, Titan is almost as if Titan, the planet Saturn, I think has another planet revolving around it, because Titan shows planetary character. It shows planet characteristics. I think it's just caught in Saturn's orbit. But anyways, that's a video for another time. We'll talk about moons that should be planets. I think I'll do that next. But yes, so now Titan will be a planet, which is, I think Titan's a planet anyways. It's caught in Saturn's orbit. But all the moons, our moon, will be considered a planet. What is the first rule and for it to be a planet is it has to revolve around the sun. As I said before, it technically is, but it isn't. It's not its primary orbit. It's not directly orbiting the sun. It's just kind of going with another object around the sun. So that's why I disagree, because it's going to make over 100 objects in our solar system planets, including moons. So that's already wrong to me. So this new rule, it's exciting to have 100 and some objects in our solar system considered planets, but at the same time, that's wrong because moons aren't planets. So this new classification that they're currently discussing would also be false. I think it should look at the 5 objects they have that they know have planetary characteristics and should apply them to those, and we'll look at everything else later. And exclude moons, because moons have their own special ways they work. They don't work like planets. They work like moons with tidal forces and all that. So that's also wrong. So here's what I'm proposing, and this is going to finish the video off because I'm going to make my own theory, and I'm going to call it the Pluto theory. Now, let me go ahead and say I want to rewrite the laws that make planets planets. Due to the inconvenience of the third rule, where an object sits in our solar system should not affect its status of being a planet or not a planet. And I strongly believe that, because if the Earth were to somehow get caught up in a belt, would Earth also not be a planet? Earth is clearly a planet. It's one of the most vibrant planets in our solar system. It contains life. We live on it. But will we no longer be on a planet if our orbital path got crowded? That's what that rule means. So that should be gone, and there should be 3 classifications of planets. Now, let's flip sides just for a minute. Now, before I used to think that Pluto wasn't a planet because it was too small. That's not the case. It has planetary characteristics. It's because of its orbital path. So when I originally thought this, I thought it was because it was too small. So I figured, can objects also be too big to be called planets? Such as gas giants. Are gas giants too big to be called planets? If a gas giant were to be in the asteroid belt, would it also be considered a dwarf planet no matter how massive it is? Do you see how much sense this rule is making now? Almost none at all. So I rewrote the thing, and here's what I believe and I think should be adopted. Anyways, so here it goes. I call it the Pluto theory, or I'll call it Pluto's law, whatever one sounds better. And I haven't written much on it, but I do have this a little bit. And there should be 3 classifications of planets, and that are dwarf planets, this regular planet, and well, we'll call these regular planets, we'll call them the rocky planets. So like, for instance, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are rocky planets. And then you have your gas giants. So dwarf planets will also be considered rocky planets, but we'll call them dwarf planets, your rocky planets, and your gas giants. Now, when you say dwarf planet, why is it not called a planet? Because planet is in the word dwarf planet. Planet is your key word. So I believe dwarf planets meaning should be it's just a small planet. Gas giants are considered planets. Dwarf planets should also be planets. And then regular rocky planets are of course planets. And then you have your regular rules that apply, and that the object orbits the sun, directly orbits the sun, as in it doesn't orbit anything else. Primary source of orbit is the sun, as massive enough to shape the planet round. And the third thing, I think it should contain an atmosphere. I think if it does not contain an atmosphere, it should not be a planet. So even though moons contain atmospheres, some objects in space don't contain atmospheres, such as smaller asteroids and other things along, you know. So I believe it should behave like a planet to be considered a planet. It shouldn't matter where it sits. It shouldn't matter if it's in an asteroid belt, a Kuiper belt, somewhere else. If it has a ton of neighbors, it shouldn't matter where it sits. So is Pluto a planet? Yes. With this new theory, not only will we have Pluto, but we would have 11 to 12 new planets. Now, Huamia is a special case because we're not sure what's going on with that. With its shape, it's kind of shaped funny. But with this new rule, I wrote. I believe it should be adopted. So like and share this video if you agree with me that Pluto is a planet along with 3 to 4 others. Well, this is stop this madness. It doesn't have to be this hard. It's obviously a planet. It shows characteristics of a planet. Pluto has a moon, and it's massive enough to have something else revolve around it. Just because it sits in a crowded place does not mean it's not a planet. I've been so mad since 2006 when I grew up learning that Pluto was a planet. All of a sudden that stopped. Pluto was no longer a planet. That made no sense to me. I've debunked this. I'm James. You've been watching Cosmic Corner, and Pluto is indeed a planet.